It's the 1950s in New York. A man walks into a hotel to grab a drink before he goes to a party. While he waits for his drink, he notices two women talking at a table. One of them, he recognizes. It's Therese Bolivet. She's a young clerk working at a toy department in a store in New York. Therese is very pretty with short brown hair and dark gray eyes. She's sitting with an equally stunning woman named Carol Aird. Carol is the opposite of Therese in terms of beauty. While Therese has a quiet, warm beauty, Carol is a blonde bombshell. She has soulful blue eyes that seem to look right into your soul. They are whispering when the man, Jack, interrupts them to talk to Therese. They are friends, and he wants to know if Therese is going to the same party that he's planning to go to. Therese looks bothered that Jack interrupted their conversation, especially when Carol starts to collect her things to leave. Carol excuses herself by saying she has some errands to run, and with a meaningful squeeze of Therese's shoulder, she leaves. Therese feels sad that Carol has left. She goes to the party, but her mind is on the blonde. While in the car with the talkative Jack, Therese watches the city pass by and remembers the first time she met the beautiful woman. In a flashback, Carol is looking at some toys for her daughter, Rindy, at the store Therese works at. She is so elegant and beautiful that she catches Therese's attention. She had never seen a woman like her before, even living in New York and working in close contact with people of all social classes. There's something different about Carol, though. For Therese, a working-class girl who is trying to get by, juggling her new job and her relationship with her boyfriend, Carol is like a movie star. She looks so composed and successful, something that Therese can only wish for. What the young woman isn't aware of is that Carol has her issues. She's the wife of a successful businessman, Harge, but they have a loveless marriage. Carol doesn't feel a connection to Harge anymore, yet he refuses to grant her the divorce she wishes. He's also jealous that she had an affair with her friend Abby a few years back and they are still close friends. It's a fact that Carol is attracted to women, and she can't change that no matter how much Harge wishes for it. She can never come out because, in the 50s, she would be considered perverted and depraved. With no way out of her awful situation, Carol hides her reality. Later, at a toy store, she notices the young clerk of the toy store staring at her, as if she's the only person in the room, and she gets curious. She approaches Therese with the excuse of finding a toy for her daughter, and they start making small talk about toys. Carol has a smooth voice, almost alluring, and Therese can't stop staring at her. During their talk, Carol learns a few facts about Therese. She likes train sets, she probably didn't have money as a kid, and she reads to spend time, the cheapest hobby there is. As for Therese, she finds out Carol has a daughter. She probably doesn't like being a housewife, but she has a lot of money, enough to buy a brand new train set in a blink of an eye. Carol accepts Therese's suggestion of a gift and gives Therese her personal information so the gift can be delivered. As she walks away, Therese stares at her. Carol can't resist the urge of looking back at the girl with a secretive smile while she whispers a compliment about her hat. It's a pleasantry that makes Therese's day. When the woman leaves the store, Therese notices that she left her gloves behind. Later on, Therese goes out with her boyfriend Richard for movies and a drink. They meet with Richard's friends and one of them works at New York Times. He finds out Therese likes taking pictures and invites her to drop by the newspaper to meet a photographer that is a friend of his. Therese gets excited by the prospect of working with something she loves for a change and accepts the offer. She feels like her life is very stagnant. She has a small apartment, a job that she doesn't like, and many dreams that are far from her reach. She loves Richard, but she's afraid that their relationship will end up with her being a housewife while he works doing something he hates. Thinking about that reminds her of Carol. She wonders if the woman has the life she ever dreamed of. With the beautiful blonde in mind, Therese decides to send her gloves back to her by post. The following morning, Carol is in her mansion with her daughter when she receives her gloves. Her husband also appears at the house to take their daughter out. Their relationship is strained. He wants her to act like his wife for appearance's sake, but Carol is tired of always wearing a mask. She wants to spend her life without having to pretend to be something she isn't, the trophy wife. Harge is also jealous of Carol's friend, Abby, and he's suspicious of the nature of the relationship. He implies that he wants Carol to spend less time with Abby and more time with him and his friends. Carol accepts it because she doesn't want to push Harge too far. At the same time, as an act of rebellion, she decides to invite Therese to have lunch with her. Therese accepts right away. Later on, she is eager and nervous as she waits for Carol at the restaurant. When Carol arrives, she doesn't think twice about her order. Therese, who has never been to the restaurant before, orders the same. They talk a bit about Therese's name because Carol thought it was a male name when she received her gloves. She says that if it were a man, she wouldn't have invited him for lunch. Carol is effortless in her flirting, and Therese goes with the flow. She compliments Carol's perfume and finds out she's married with a divorce on the way. There's a moment of awkward silence when Therese reveals she has a boyfriend, though she admits she doesn't know what to do with him. Carol seems affected by the fact that Therese has a boyfriend. She starts questioning if it's a good idea to pursue a woman who doesn't know what she wants in her life. At the same time, when Carol asks Therese to visit her at her house, she doesn't hesitate to accept. The girl is a conundrum, and like a moth to a flame, Carol is attracted to her strangeness. Carol leaves with Abby after lunch with Therese. Abby is curious about Therese, but Carol is nonchalant and pretends she isn't important. Abby gives her a ride to a party Harge insisted she participate in. Carol is less than excited, but she promised Harge that she would try. They dance a bit together and Harge tells her she's the most beautiful woman in the room. The flattering words have no meaning for Carol. She doesn't care about Harge's opinion anymore. The only reason she's there with him is to appease him and lay down the rumors about her. Later on, when they go back home, Harge invites Carol to spend Christmas with his family, but she politely denies it. What Harge doesn't know is that she's planning to invite Therese to spend Christmas with her. Therese is not having a good time either. She goes to the New York Times building with Richard's friend, Danny, and he forcibly kisses her. She thought he was trying to help her become a photographer for the paper, but he just wanted to sleep with her. She leaves in a rush, her good mood erased. In the following scene, Carol picks up Therese to go spend Sunday with her as she promised. Therese is enchanted by the older woman. She watches Carol as a person would admire a piece of art, looking at all the details and trying to search for hidden meanings in everything that they find out. Carol is an enigma to Therese. She doesn't know what the woman wants from her. She keeps wondering why such a sophisticated woman would look twice at her, a simple clerk at a toy store. It makes no sense. Yet, Therese can't stop her eagerness to spend time with her and get to know Carol better. When Carol stops the car to buy a pine tree, Therese quietly takes pictures of her. In Carol's mansion, Therese attentively watches her interactions with her daughter, seeing a caring side of Carol she had yet to meet. Later on, when they are alone and Therese is playing the piano, Carol wonders about the pictures she took of her. Therese quickly apologizes, but Carol brushes her off. The younger girl explains that a friend of hers told her she should take more pictures of humans, something that Carol finds funny. Carol watches Therese playing the piano and subtly comes closer to her. She puts her hands on Therese's shoulders and compliments her on her skill. Therese's heart almost jumps out of her chest at the woman's delicate touch. It's confusing for her to feel like that for another woman. But Carol is no ordinary woman. Carol asks Therese to see her photographs and Therese replies that they are at her apartment. Carol states that she should invite her to visit. Then she leaves as if what she said didn't give Therese butterflies. Their cozy time together is interrupted by Harge barging in. Carol feels weirded out when he sees Therese and tries to keep them separated. Harge, on the other hand, quickly understands what Carol is trying to do with the younger girl. He gets angry and upset that Carol is with another woman, especially because of his hopes that they can overcome their differences and be happy again. Seeing Therese in Carol's house, so comfortable, makes him want to throttle her. Since he can't, he interrogates her to know where she met Carol. Carol comes to the rescue and explains to Harge where she met Therese, and he snidely replies that it's bold of her to bring one of her conquests home. Carol has to part with her daughter because she's going to spend Christmas with Harge's family, and again Harge tries to change her mind about their relationship. This time, when Carol pushes him away, he starts arguing with her. Therese tries not to watch their private moment, but it's too late. She caught them fighting. The mood is ruined after that. Carol silently drives Therese back to the train station and leaves without a word. When she's alone on the train, the severity of the situation dawns on her and she starts crying. She feels guilty as if she's the one to blame for Carol's miserable marriage. She also feels humiliated by what Harge thought of her. She indeed feels attracted to Carol, and she accepted her invitation with no hesitation. But at the same time, they aren't romantically involved. Therese doesn't even know if that's what she's looking for with Carol. When she arrives at her building, the phone rings. It's Carol. She apologizes for her brash behavior and wonders if she can visit Therese at her place the next day. Despite crying over her just a few moments before, again Therese doesn't hesitate to accept. Before Carol visits her the following day, she goes to her lawyer and receives some very bad news. Harge changed their divorce agreement to a much harsher one. He doesn't want Carol to have contact with their daughter until the hearing, and he doesn't want to share custody with her anymore. He's using her orientation against her, alleging she has immoral behavior and can't take care of Rindy. It's such a low blow that Carol can't believe it. She knows the only reason Harger is doing that is that he's possessive and jealous of her, and he doesn't want her to be with anyone but himself. It's selfish and wrong. Carol won't be able to see or talk to her daughter for months before the hearing, and that's what hurts the most. He's taking the most important person away from her life, only because he can't accept the fact that she isn't attracted to him or any other man. Now Carol has to think about choosing her freedom or being part of her daughter's life. Therese is out with Richard and she tells him that she is planning on taking her photography career seriously. Richard interrupts her to talk about his trip to Europe, a trip that Therese doesn't want to go. The way Richard brushes her aspirations and dreams aside and focuses only on what he wants makes Therese think of Carol. How she showed an interest in seeing her work with only a few hours together, something that Richard hasn't done ever. She questions if Richard has ever been in love, and he replies that he's in love with her. Therese doesn't feel that way about him, and it's becoming unclear why she started dating him in the first place. They have nothing in common. They haven't even taken their relationship to the next level yet, which is to be intimate. Richard wants to get married to her, to have children with her, and she doesn't feel ready for that. Especially not when she's constantly questioning her feelings for Carol, wondering if it's possible to have a relationship with another woman. She even asks Richard if he ever heard of a relationship like that, which confuses him. After she meets with her lawyer, Carol goes out with Abby. Her friend asks if she knows what she's doing with Therese since she's young and Carol is in the middle of a divorce. Carol doesn't know what she wants from Therese. She's going to enjoy her time with the girl and see where it takes her. She has no hope for a serious relationship, not with Harge hanging Rindy's custody over her head, but she still wants to have a nice time. Later on, she goes to Therese's apartment with a very expensive gift for her. It's a brand new camera with a bunch of films that will help Therese take better pictures. Therese is speechless. Again, she's reminded of the way Richard treated her in contrast with Carol, a woman she barely knows. Carol even critically analyzes her pictures and compliments them. It makes Therese feel over the moon. Such a cultured and sophisticated woman saying that her pictures are perfect. It's flattering. While Therese is mentally doing a happy dance with Carol's compliment, Carol sees a picture of when Therese was just a kid and feels bad. She feels guilty for leading Therese on with gifts and compliments. She knows that nothing can come out of their relationship. She would never choose any woman over her daughter, not even Abby. Her situation is so bad that she starts silently crying on Therese's old couch. Therese tries to comfort her, but there is nothing she can do to solve Carol's problem. Still, before she leaves Therese for good, Carol asks if she wants to go on a trip with her. Just the two of them. Therese accepts. Richard isn't happy about it. He accuses Therese of having a massive crush on Carol and that she's going to regret it when she leaves her hanging. Despite knowing the risks, Therese is still willing to try. It's something that Richard will never understand because he never had to face a situation where he questioned himself. Therese needs to know if she likes women, if she's just infatuated with Carol, or if it's something deeper. Richard storms out of the apartment, and Therese feels slightly bad about him. They don't break up. Carol and Therese leave before Christmas. Therese is excited because she had never gone on an adventure like that. Her life was so simple and uneventful before Carol. Now, it was like a curtain was opened and she could see the world for the very first time. It's exhilarating. They are going to Chicago. Therese gives Carol a meaningful gift that Carol loves, a vinyl with the song she played on the piano at her house. Carol asks her if she misses Richard and Therese truthfully replies that she hasn't even thought about him the whole day. It's like she left her life behind to experience her new life to the fullest. Back in New York, a furious Harge goes to Abby's house looking for her. Abby tells him that she's not there, but he insists. He tries to appeal for Abby's empathy, saying that he loves Carol, but Abby has no empathy for a man who is trying to take his daughter off her mother because he's jealous. Abby closes the door in his face and Harge storms away. Therese and Carol finally stop in a motel to rest. Carol invites Therese to her room while she's in the shower and asks the girl to fetch her blue sweater for her. While searching for the sweater, Therese smells Carol's clothes and accidentally finds a gun. She quickly hides it back before Carol notices her going through her things, but the thought that Carol could be afraid of her bothers her. When they are on the road again, Therese asks if Carol is afraid of something, without mentioning the gun, and Carol cuts her off, saying she's not afraid of anything. That's not true. She wouldn't have brought a gun with her to their trip if it was. Still, Therese knows better than to force her to answer. They stop at another motel to rest. This time Therese suggests they share a room. The room is a presidential suite with 2 separate beds. They stay in the room for the night. Carol does Therese's makeup for her the same way she does hers. She also asks Therese to put some perfume on her, and then smell it on her neck. For the first time since they met each other, Therese gets close to Carol's face. She inhales the perfume on her neck and it's such a good feeling that she suddenly feels bashful. When they go to bed, Therese obsessively stares at Carol. She looks so peaceful sleeping that she can't divert her gaze. On the next day, they finally arrive in Chicago and stay in a beautiful hotel. They divide the bedroom again, and Therese is amazed by the fanciness of the room. She has never been in such a nice place before, so she's over the moon. They have a nice dinner and on the next day, they go sightseeing around town. Before leaving the hotel, while Therese is grabbing her post, Carol calls Harge hoping that Rindy is going to pick up. Unfortunately for her, Harge picks up and she has to hang up before he knows it's her. In the evening, as they are getting ready for bed, Carol confesses to Therese that she has never spent New Year with Harge because he was always busy. Therese also admits that it's her first time spending New Year with someone, and as she's saying that, she holds Carol's hand. While they are staring into each other's eyes, Carol opens her robe and they kiss. Slowly, as if testing their boundaries, they start touching each other. They have a very passionate evening and Carol even calls Therese her angel. After their first time together, they can't get enough of each other. Their happy and peaceful days come to an abrupt end when Carol receives a telegram that makes her so angry that she runs to grab her gun. She bursts into another room while a confused Therese follows her. Inside the room, there's a man that was hired by Harge to get proof of Carol's immoral activities. The man had been following them since they left New York and he caught everything they did together on tape and in pictures. Carol wants to eliminate the man. She's shaking in anger and can't believe that Harge could have done something like that. The detective calmly tells her that he already sent the tapes to Harge and there is nothing she can do anymore. She points the gun at the man and in her desolation, she tries to shoot the recorder but the gun's chamber is empty. Carol feels as if she lost everything in the blink of an eye. All her happiness goes down the drain. She gives Therese the telegram she received, and Therese also gets upset about the content. They leave that same day, back to their reality. Therese is quiet and somber. Carol worries about her and asks what's on her mind. Therese is choked up about it, saying that she feels selfish for taking Carol away from the city and putting her in a mess of a situation with Harger. She could lose her daughter, and all because Therese couldn't say no to her. Carol stops the car and wipes Therese's tears. She forcibly tells Therese that she's not to blame for her situation, and that she was the one to offer her everything. She knew Harge was a jealous man and that he could complicate her situation even more. It was a risk she was willing to take to be with Therese. Later on, they are at a motel again and Carol asks Therese to sleep with her. They hug and kiss their sorrow away, forgetting for a moment the mess Carol has gotten into. The following morning, Therese wakes up alone in bed, with Abby staring at her from an armchair. Abby informs her that Carol left early that morning and that she won't be coming back. Therese still feels guilty, especially with Abby's harsh look at her. She wonders what she did to Abby for her to hate her so much, but Abby tells her that she doesn't hate her. She's just worried about Carol, and in a way, she's worried about Therese too. She's young, impressionable, and clearly infatuated with Carol. Now that Carol is gone, along with any hopes of a relationship between them, she feels sorry for Therese. After talking to her about her relationship with Carol, Abby hands her a letter from the blonde. In the letter, Carol tries to assuage Therese's guilt again and says that it was better if they were over before they truly started. Their feelings were still new and fresh, they could easily go away. Therese doesn't agree with Carol's rational assessment. For Carol, she might have been a passing fancy, a momentary distraction for her issues with Harge. To Therese, Carol changed the way she saw life. She changed the way she understood herself. That's not easy to forget and let go. She understands that Harge forced Carol's hand, but it doesn't change the fact that Carol left without saying goodbye. It doesn't change the fact that she left only a letter to explain how young and naive Therese is, and that one day she would understand. Therese feels as if the ground opened under her feet. She had the chance to dream about a different life, but that's all that was. A dream. When she goes back home, she feels lost and depressed. She misses Carol, but the only thing she has left of her are the pictures she took during their trip. One evening, she tries to call Carol, but Carol has to hang up on her. Therese whispers that she misses her to the silent line. Days go by and Therese slowly tries to move on from Carol. She breaks up with Richard and gets a job as a photographer for the New York Times. As for Carol, she has to follow all of Harge's rules to have her daughter in her life again. First, she can't have any contact with Therese or Abby. She also has to go to a psychotherapist that, according to her mother-in-law, is very expensive. Carol confesses to Abby that she doesn't know how long she is going to accept that situation, not when she can't even bring Randy home with her. Abby wonders about Therese, but Carol replies that she hasn't heard from her since the day she called and Carol hung up the phone. One day, Carol by chance sees Therese on the street, probably on her way to work. It affects Carol more than she's willing to admit because she misses her so much. Their days together were some of the best she had in a long time. Seeing her makes Carol remember that she isn't a puppet for Harge to use as he wishes. She is a person with feelings, and Harge can't stop her from being who she truly is. During their custody hearing, she informs him that she won't fight over full custody of Randy anymore. She thinks it's better for her if she stays with Harge, but Carol wants to visit her often. She doesn't want to deny herself anymore. She wants to be who she is, to love who she wants, and she's tired of fighting. She leaves Harge to accept or deny the decision, but she chokingly promises him that if he denies it, they are going to court. After being brave to speak her mind and stand up for what she believes, Carol decides to get closure, both for her and Therese. She sends her a letter to invite her for dinner and to talk. Therese accepts. She can never say no to Carol. She will be on her guard, though. She was hurt enough by Carol, and she has no idea what she wants. The conversation is stifling at the beginning. Therese is defensive and closed off. Carol compliments her on her new job and informs her that she's going to sell her house and work. Therese doesn't know what to say. Carol straight up asks if Therese would like to stay with her, now that she's going to be officially divorced from Harj. Therese can't believe she's telling her that after ghosting her with not even a proper goodbye. For the first time since she met her, Therese says no. Carol tries again, this time inviting Therese to have dinner with her and a group of friends. Therese stays silent. Feeling desperate, Carol confesses her love to Therese, whose eyes widen in shock. Before she can say anything, her friend, Jack, interrupts them. Carol comes up with an excuse to leave and says goodbye to Therese. Therese doesn't know what to do or feel. Hearing from Carol that she loves her is the best and worst feeling ever. She loves her too, of course, but she's afraid that Carol could suddenly change her mind and leave her again. She feels confused. Going to the party was supposed to be a distraction, but instead, she sees a bunch of happy couples dancing and having a good time and wishes for it too. Instead of waiting for something else to happen, like she used to do before, Therese decides to go after what she wants. Taking a cab, she goes to the party Carol had mentioned and sees her there. When Carol notices her, she can't contain her smile of happiness. Therese smiles at her too. Finally, after a whirlwind of emotions that caught both of them by surprise, they had nothing stopping them from getting what they truly wanted: to love each other freely and without reservations.